dare you to come inside this coffee shop? It's not for you poor. Just get out from here.
I am a police officer.
So what? Just get out from here.
What happens when a woman drunk on racial entitlement picks the absolute worst person to humiliate, and the unblinking eye of a security camera catches every damning second? Karen slammed both palms on the table and shoved the coffee cup toward the black man in the tailored suit, screaming at him to get out of her coffee shop before she called the real authorities. Agent Marcus didn't flinch. He slowly reached into his jacket, and what he pulled out made every jaw in that cafe hit the floor. What happened in the next 72 hours would become the entire nation's legend, a story whispered about in every coffee shop, courtroom, and FBI field office for decades. The woman's open palm cracked across the side of Marcus Cole's face so hard his coffee jumped out of the cup and splashed across the counter. He didn't flinch, didn't step back, just stood there with Colombian roast dripping off his knuckles while every single person in that coffee shop froze mid-breath. What happened in the next 47 minutes would become the most talked about incident in the history of downtown Richmond, Virginia. A story whispered about in break rooms, dissected on forums, replayed on news channels, until the footage practically burned a hole through the internet. A legend. But let me take you back about 90 seconds before that slap, because you need to understand exactly how a Tuesday morning coffee run turned into the worst mistake of one woman's entire life. Marcus Cole walked into the Roasted Bean at 8:14 a.m., 6'2", clean shave, navy blue suit that fit him the way a suit fits when you actually earn the paycheck that bought it. He had a Glock 19 millions in a holster under his left arm and a federal badge in his breast pocket, but nobody could see either of those things. All they could see was a black man in a nice suit stepping up to the counter to order a large dark roast with 1 sugar. That's it. That's all he was doing. Behind him in line stood Patricia Hargrove, 53 years old, blonde highlights, designer sunglasses pushed up on her forehead, and a mood so foul you could practically smell it from the door. Patricia had been coming to this coffee shop every morning for 6 years. She considered it her living room, her territory, her place. Marcus reached the register. A young barista named Danny, 19 years old with green streaks in her hair, greeted him with a practiced smile and asked for his order. Large dark roast, 1 sugar, please. Simple, polite, done. But Patricia Hargrove was already moving. She stepped around Marcus, planted her elbow on the counter, and physically wedged herself between him and the register. Her purse swung and hit his forearm. Marcus took 1 step to his right, gave her space. "Excuse me," he said. Not aggressive, not passive, just a statement of fact. "You bumped me. I'm here." Patricia didn't look at him. She looked at Danny. "I'll have my usual, and you can help me first. I've been coming here since, before this place had that ridiculous mural on the wall." Danny's eyes flicked between the 2 customers. Her fingers hovered over the register. "Ma'am," he was actually next in line. Patricia's head snapped toward Marcus for the first time. She looked him up and down, slowly, deliberately. The kind of look that inventories a person's skin color before it registers anything else. "I don't think so," she said. Get this. There were 14 people inside the Roasted Bean at that moment. 14 witnesses, plus 4 security cameras, each with a different angle, each recording in high definition, each stamping every frame with a time code that would later become evidence. Patricia Hargrove didn't know about the upgraded security system. She didn't know the owner had installed new cameras 2 weeks ago after a string of car break-ins on the block. She didn't know she was being filmed from 4 directions. She didn't know a lot of things that morning. Marcus shifted his weight to his back foot and squared his shoulders toward her. Not threatening, just present. "I was here first. I'll be 30 seconds. Patricia put her hand flat on the counter. "Do you even belong in here? This isn't that kind of establishment. Maybe you're looking for somewhere else." There it was, right there. The mask slipped and the ugly truth walked right out in plain daylight. In her mind, a black man in her coffee shop was an intruder, a trespasser, an anomaly that needed to be corrected. Marcus Cole's jaw tightened exactly once. His right hand came down and rested flat against his thigh, fingers straight, the way they teach you at Quantico when they want you to control your hands during a high-stress encounter. He'd spent 11 years at the Bureau. He'd interrogated arms dealers. He'd sat across the table from a man who'd built pipe bombs in his basement and mailed them to courthouses. He'd been in rooms where one wrong syllable meant someone died. A woman cutting him in line at a coffee shop was not going to rattle him, but he wasn't going to move either. "I'll wait my turn," he said. And my turn is right now. Danny reached for a large cup. Sir, what was your order again? Large dark roast? 1 sugar? Patricia grabbed the cup out of Danny's hand, just snatched it, crumpled it slightly in her grip, and tossed it behind the counter. I said I'm next. What part of this is confusing? Call your manager. Believe me, every customer in that shop was watching now. A man in a gray hoodie near the window lowered his laptop screen. 2 women at a corner table stopped mid-conversation. A teenager with headphones pulled one earbud out. The room went quiet. Danny pressed a button on the small intercom behind the register. Tony, can you come up front? While they waited, Patricia turned fully toward Marcus. She positioned her body between him and the counter the way you'd block a doorway. You people always do this. You push your way into places where you're not wanted and then act like the world owes you something. Marcus uncrossed his arms. He pulled his phone from his pocket, checked the time, and put it back. He didn't respond to her words. Not because he was passive, because he was calculating. Every second of silence was giving her more rope, and she was sprinting with it. Tony Medina, the shop manager, came through a door behind the espresso machines. Mid-30s, stocky build, a roasted bean polo stretched across his chest. He assessed the situation in about 2 seconds flat, because he'd seen Patricia Hargrove throw fits before. He'd just never seen it go this direction. Patricia, what's going on? This man is harassing me. He pushed in front of me in line. I want him removed. I swear this happened. She said those words while standing in front of a man she had physically cut in front of, while 4 cameras recorded every pixel, while 14 people watched with their own functioning eyeballs. Tony looked at Marcus. Sir, were you in line? I was first in line. I ordered. She stepped in front of me. Tony looked at Danny. Danny nodded. He was here first, Tony. Tony turned back to Patricia. Patricia, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Let me get his order out and then I'll take care of you right away. Patricia's face flushed red from her collar to her hairline. Are you seriously taking his side? I spend $400 a month in this store. $400. And you're going to let some thug off the street cut in front of me? Marcus set his briefcase down on the floor beside his right foot. He squared up to Patricia, not close enough to be aggressive, close enough to be heard clearly at a conversational volume. I'm not a thug. I'm a customer. And you need to step back. Or what? Patricia leaned in. What are you going to do? I know people in this city, real people. 1 phone call and I can make your life very difficult. Marcus didn't lean back. Ma'am, I'd strongly recommend you stop talking. Here's what nobody tells you about moments like this. They don't explode all at once. They build like pressure in a pipe. 1 comment, then another, then a threat, then a gesture, and everyone watching knows what's about to happen, but nobody moves to stop it because the human brain has this delay between recognizing danger and actually doing something about it. Patricia Hargrove's next move closed every possible off-ramp. She pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and while staring directly into Marcus Cole's eyes, said the following words. Yes, hello, I need police. There's a large black man threatening me at the Roasted Bean on Broad Street. I think he might have a weapon. Please hurry. I'm afraid for my life. Marcus reached into his jacket. 3 people gasped. The teenager near the door actually stood up. Tony took a step backward behind the counter. Marcus pulled out his badge. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The gold shield caught the overhead light. He held it at chest height and let it hang there. Special Agent Marcus Cole, FBI Richmond Field Office. His voice was level, flat. The voice of a man who has said his title and name 1,000 times in situations far more dangerous than this. You just filed a false police report in front of a federal agent and approximately 14 civilian witnesses. I need you to put your phone down. Patricia's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her hand, the one holding the phone, drifted down to her side like a puppet whose strings got cut. Her eyes locked onto the badge as if it might change into something else if she stared long enough. Now here's where the story takes the turn. The one you'll remember. Patricia Hargrove did not apologize. She did not back down. She did not do the thing that any rational person with a functioning survival instinct would do when confronted with the reality that they just called the police on a federal agent using a fabricated threat. Instead, she swung. Her open palm cracked across the side of Marcus Cole's face. And that brings us full circle to the moment this story started. Coffee on his knuckles, the sharp sound of skin on skin, and an entire room holding its breath. Marcus didn't touch her. Mark that. Underline it. He did not put a single finger on Patricia Hargrove. What he did was take his phone out for the second time, dial a number, and say 5 words. "This is Cole. I need backup." Then he looked at Tony. "Lock the front door. Nobody leaves until Richmond PD arrives." Tony didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the front door and turned the deadbolt. Patricia looked around the room for an ally. Any ally. Her eyes swept from face to face the way a drowning person scans for something to grab. Nobody moved toward her. Nobody offered support. The man in the gray hoodie was recording on his phone. The 2 women at the corner table had pushed their chairs back against the wall. The teenager had both earbuds out now and was standing near the emergency exit. "You can't keep me here," Patricia said, but her voice had dropped from a shout to something smaller. The adrenaline was wearing off. Reality was settling in. Marcus slid his badge back into his breast pocket. A welt was forming on his left cheek, pink turning red. He didn't touch it. "You're being detained. You struck a federal officer. That's a felony under Title 18, Section 111 of the United States Code." Trust me on this. The legal weight of that sentence landed on Patricia Hargrove harder than any physical blow could have. Her face cycled through about 6 different emotions in 3 seconds. Rage, disbelief, confusion, fear, calculation, and then something that looked like the first flicker of genuine terror she'd ever felt in her entire sheltered life. "I want a lawyer," she said. "You'll get one." Sirens. Faint at first, then building. Richmond PD had been dispatched from the 911 call Patricia made, the one where she claimed a large black man was threatening her with a weapon. They were coming hot. Lights, sirens, the whole show. And this is where the security cameras became the most important objects in the building. Marcus turned to Tony. "Your security system. Does it record to a local drive or the cloud?" "Both," Tony said. Marcus nodded once. "Good. Don't touch it. Don't let anyone touch it." The first squad car pulled up outside the glass storefront. 2 officers came through the front door after Tony unlocked it. Officer Rivera and Officer Dawkins. Both had their hands on their belts. Both scanned the room. Both locked onto Marcus because they'd been dispatched to deal with a threatening black man, and Marcus was the black man in the room. This is the part that makes my blood cold. Listen closely. Officer Dawkins, the younger of the 2, took a step toward Marcus and said, "Sir, I'm going to need you to put your hands where I can see them." Marcus kept his hands at his sides. Open palms, fingers visible. "Officers, my name is Special Agent Marcus Cole, FBI. My badge and credentials are in my left breast pocket. My service weapon is in a shoulder holster under my left arm. I'm going to reach very slowly for my badge. Is that acceptable?" No sudden moves, no ego, no assumption that the badge would protect him automatically. Because here's the thing about being a black federal agent in America, and I need you to hear this clearly. The badge doesn't change the first thing people see. Marcus knew that. He'd known that his entire career. He'd trained for this exact moment, not because the Bureau prepared him, but because his father prepared him when he was 12 years old, standing in their kitchen in Newport News, explaining how to interact with police so that he would come home alive. Officer Rivera stepped forward. "Go ahead," slowly. Marcus reached across his body with 2 fingers and extracted the badge, held it out. Rivera took it, examined it, and his entire posture changed. Shoulders dropped, hand came off his belt. "Agent Cole, what happened here?" Patricia jumped in before Marcus could speak. "He assaulted me. He threatened me. I want him arrested." Now let me tell you something beautiful. Dawkins had a body camera. Rivera had a body camera. And both of those cameras were rolling when Patricia said those words. She was now on the record lying to police, on top of the false 911 call, on top of assaulting a federal officer, all within the radius of 6 different cameras. Marcus spoke calmly. "This woman cut in line, made racially motivated statements in front of multiple witnesses, called 911 and falsely reported that I was armed and threatening her, and then physically struck me across the face. The business has security footage from 4 cameras. Every customer in this establishment is a witness." Rivera looked at Marcus's cheek. The welt was obvious. Then he looked at Patricia. "Ma'am, is that true?" "Of course it's not true. He's lying. They always lie." Pay attention to what Marcus did next. He could have responded. He could have defended himself. He could have torn into her. Instead, he stepped back. He gave the officers the floor. Because Marcus Cole understood something that Patricia Hargrove never would. He didn't need to win the argument. The evidence was going to win it for him. Rivera asked Tony to pull up the security footage. Tony led him behind the counter to a small office. They were gone for 4 minutes. When Rivera came back, his expression had changed completely. His jaw was tight and his eyes were fixed on Patricia Hargrove with the kind of look that officers reserve for people they're about to put in handcuffs. "Ma'am, please turn around and place your hands behind your back." Patricia's legs buckled slightly. She caught herself on the counter. "What? You can't be serious. Do you know who my husband is? He's on the city council. Call him. Call Richard Hargrove right now." Dawkins moved in. "Ma'am, you're being placed under arrest for assault on a federal officer, filing a false police report, and obstruction. You have the right to remain silent." "I am not going to remain silent. This is outrageous. This is discrimination. I'm being discriminated against." The handcuffs clicked. Patricia Hargrove, who walked into the Roasted Bean that morning believing she was untouchable, was being led out the front door in silver bracelets past the same counter where she'd thrown a paper cup like a queen dismissing a servant. Marcus watched her go. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't say a word until she was outside. Then he turned to Danny, who was still standing behind the register with her hands shaking slightly. "Can I still get that dark roast?" Danny let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. She grabbed a fresh cup, filled it, added 1 sugar, and set it on the counter. Marcus reached for his wallet. "It's on the house," Tony said from the office doorway. Marcus shook his head. He laid a $5 bill on the counter. "I pay for my coffee." He picked up his briefcase, took a sip, and sat down at the table nearest the window. He had 30 minutes before he needed to be at the field office. He intended to drink his coffee in peace, but peace wasn't coming. Not yet. Because the man in the gray hoodie, the one who'd been recording on his phone, had already uploaded the video. 3 minutes of footage, Patricia's rant, the 911 call, the slap, the badge reveal, the arrest, all of it. He posted it with the caption, "Karen calls 911 on a black FBI agent. It goes exactly how you'd hope." Within an hour, the video had 50,000 views. By lunch, 500,000. By the end of the day, it was the #1 trending topic on 4 different platforms. And the security footage was even more damning. Once Richmond PD released the relevant clips as part of the public record, people saw angles the phone video missed. They saw Patricia grab the cup from Danny's hand. They saw her deliberately step in front of Marcus. They saw the moment she checked to make sure he was black before deciding to make her stand. Camera 2 caught it. A clear, intentional look at his skin, followed by the decision to act. That 3-second clip became the most shared moment of the entire video, because it showed what so many people experience but can rarely prove: the calculation, the choice, the decision to treat another human being as less than, based on nothing but pigment. Let me tell you what happened to Patricia Hargrove. She was charged with 3 crimes: assault on a federal officer, filing a false police report, and a state charge for misuse of the 911 system. Her husband Richard did indeed sit on the city council. He released a statement within 24 hours distancing himself from his wife's actions. Read that again. Her own husband threw her under the bus on a public platform before the arraignment. Patricia hired a defense attorney named Glenn Forsyth. Big name in Richmond, big fees. Forsyth reviewed the security footage, the body camera footage, the phone footage, the witness statements from 11 of the 14 customers who voluntarily gave accounts, and the 911 call recording. Then he reportedly told Patricia that her best option was to plead guilty, to reduce charges, and pray for leniency. She refused. She wanted a trial. She wanted to tell her side. Here's how well that went. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution played the security footage on a screen visible to the jury and the gallery. They played it 4 times, each time from a different camera angle. The jury watched Patricia Hargrove look at Marcus Cole's skin. They watched her cut in line. They watched her throw a cup. They heard her say, "You people." They heard her tell the 911 operator that a man who had done nothing but order coffee was armed and dangerous. They watched her slap a federal agent across the face. Then they watched Marcus Cole respond by calmly pulling out his badge. The defense tried to argue that Patricia felt genuinely threatened. Forsyth put her on the stand. She cried. She said she'd been scared. She said Marcus was intimidating because of his size. The prosecutor asked one question on cross-examination that ended the trial in every way that mattered. "Mrs. Hargrove, at any point before you saw Agent Cole's skin color, did you feel threatened?" She hesitated. That hesitation lasted about 2 seconds. On camera, in front of the jury, Those 2 seconds were a confession. "No," she finally said. "Guilty on all counts." No kidding. The jury deliberated for less than 90 minutes. She received 18 months in federal detention for the assault charge, plus 12 months of probation for the false report. The judge, a 60-year-old woman named Judge Carolyn Pratt, added a personal comment during sentencing that made national news. "Mrs. Hargrove, you weaponized the police against an innocent man. You turned a system designed to protect people into a tool of racial harassment. This court will not treat that lightly." Richard Hargrove resigned from the city council 2 weeks after the sentencing. Their house went up for sale a month later. But here's the part of the story that most people missed. The part that didn't go viral. The part that happened quietly, after the cameras were off and the hashtags moved on. 3 days after the incident, Marcus Cole drove back to the Roasted Bean. Not during business hours, early, before the shop opened. He knocked on the back door and Tony let him in. He sat with Danny in the empty shop. She'd been having panic attacks since the incident. Couldn't sleep. Kept replaying the moment Patricia snatched the cup out of her hand. Kept wondering if she should have done more. Marcus sat across from her and said something that Danny would later recount in a local newspaper interview. Something that surprised her because it showed a crack in the armor of the man who'd stood like concrete while a woman assaulted him in public. "I almost lost it," he told her. "Right when she slapped me for about half a second, I wasn't Agent Cole. I was just a man getting hit in the face while people watched, and that half second scared me more than anything in my career, because I knew if I reacted, if I grabbed her wrist or raised my voice, I'd be the one in handcuffs. Not her, me. That's the math I do every single day." Danny asked him how he stayed so calm. He took a sip of his coffee. "Practice." That's all he said. One word. And it carried the weight of a lifetime. If this story hit you the way it hit me, subscribe and drop a comment below. Stories like this need to be heard. Not because they're entertaining, but because they're real. And the more people hear them, the harder it gets for the next Patricia Hargrove to pretend she doesn't know exactly what she's doing. Now let me finish this, because the legend doesn't end at the courthouse. 6 months after the trial, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at the FBI Richmond field office addressed to Special Agent Marcus Cole. No return address, handwritten on plain stationery. Marcus opened it at his desk. It was from Patricia Hargrove, written from the federal detention facility in Alderson, West Virginia. The letter was short. It did not make excuses. It did not explain away what she'd done. It said, in roughly these words, that she had spent 4 months in a facility where she was the minority for the first time in her life, that she had been treated the way she had treated others, that she understood now, in a way she could not have understood before, what it felt like to be judged before you open your mouth, and that she was sorry, not for getting caught, for what she did. Marcus read the letter once. He folded it. He put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. He never responded to it. He never discussed it publicly. When a reporter from the Richmond Times-Dispatch asked him about it months later, he said 6 words. "That letter is between us." No explanation, no performance of forgiveness, no public reconciliation moment for the cameras, just a man deciding that some things don't need an audience. The Roasted Bean became something of a landmark after the video went viral. Tony had to hire 2 extra staff members to handle the increased foot traffic. People came from other cities just to see the place where it happened. Tony put up a small sign near the register that read, "Everyone is welcome here. Everyone waits in line." Danny quit 6 months later, not because of trauma, but because the attention from the story led to an interview with a nonprofit that works on police accountability reform. She took a job there as a community liaison. Last anyone checked, she was thriving. Officer Rivera, the cop who reviewed the security footage and arrested Patricia, received a commendation from the department. Not for the arrest itself, but for how he handled the initial approach. He treated Marcus as a professional from the moment the badge came out. He didn't escalate. He didn't defend the caller. He let the evidence speak. That's a small thing on paper, but anyone who's watched these situations go sideways knows it's everything. Marcus Cole continued working at the Richmond field office. He never sought publicity from the incident. He turned down 14 interview requests, 2 podcast invitations, and an offer to appear on a nationally televised morning show. His supervisor once asked him why he refused all media. Marcus said, "I'm not a story. I'm an agent. I have cases to work." And he did. 3 months after the incident, Marcus led a task force that dismantled a wire fraud operation spanning 6 states. The bust resulted in 9 arrests and the recovery of $2.3 million in stolen funds. It barely made the local news. That's the thing about Marcus Cole. The worst moment of his Tuesday morning was the most dramatic thing most people will ever see. But for him, it was a detour, an interruption. A woman who decided his skin meant he didn't deserve coffee, and a system of cameras and witnesses and laws that, for once, actually worked the way it's supposed to. I want you to hold on to that phrase, for once. Because Marcus knew something that morning in the roasted bean, something he carried with him every single day. He knew that if there had been no cameras, no witnesses, no badge in his pocket, the story would have ended differently. The 911 call would have brought officers to a scene where a white woman was crying and a black man was standing there with no proof of anything. And we all know, every single one of us knows, how that version plays out. The cameras changed everything. Not because they created the truth, but because they preserved it. The truth was always there. Marcus was always innocent. Patricia was always wrong. But without that footage, the truth was just one man's word against a crying woman's performance. And history has shown us over and over and over which version gets believed. So when people talk about the roasted bean incident, when they share the video or reference the trial or bring up Marcus Cole's name in conversations about justice, this is what they're really talking about. They're talking about the fragile, improbable, almost miraculous moment when the system worked, when the cameras were rolling, when the witnesses stayed, when the officers listened to evidence instead of assumptions, when a man's dignity was protected by the very technology that usually just watches us buy coffee. That doesn't happen every time. You know it, I know it. Marcus definitely knows it. But it happened that Tuesday, in a coffee shop on Broad Street, because a woman drunk on racial entitlement picked the absolute worst person to humiliate, and the unblinking eye of a security camera caught every damning second. And Marcus Cole? He finished his coffee. He went to work. He closed cases and served his country and came home every night to a quiet apartment where nobody knew his name or his story or his face until the video dropped. And then everybody knew. But here's the thing Marcus understood that most people never will. The video didn't make him a hero. He was never trying to be one. He was trying to buy coffee. That's it. A large dark roast with 1 sugar. And the fact that buying coffee while black can turn into a federal case, a viral video, and a 3-day trial is not a victory story. It's a warning, one he hopes you're listening to. Marcus Cole took one last sip from that cup at the roasted bean, set it down on the table, and stood up. He straightened his tie. He picked up his briefcase. He walked out the front door into the Richmond morning sun. He never went back to that coffee shop. Not because he was afraid, not because he was bitter, but because a man should be able to get coffee anywhere. And he refused to let one terrible woman turn one ordinary place into a monument to the worst morning of his life. He found a new spot 3 blocks east. Small place. No cameras, no viral moments. Just a counter, a barista who remembered his order, and a cup of dark roast with 1 sugar waiting for him every morning at 8:14. Some legends end with fireworks. Some end with Ailey Man drinking coffee in peace. This one ends with both.